my notebook that Sam made me. It's so cute.
I think I gave them all to you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was so cool. I just like
personalized things.
Well, and clicks. My whole life I've loved just being a part of a group. And this is the group. No one is allowed in. You're not allowed out. I would be a really bad cult leader.
Only one way out.
Only one way out. This is not the podcast. We just really wanted to use our headsets because we are talking about supernatural stuff today.
Yes.
We had warned you all, so we're not watching episode 2. We did watch episode 2 and 3, but then we were like, what's essential? Because there's a lot going on, and we just wanted to get rolling with the plot points. So episode 5 is called Bloody Mary, and we watched it. Not our favorite, but how was it for you this time? Talk about what you were feeling before.
Literally, from the moment that series has been out, that episode is the one that I'm like, I don't like it. I always had a weird feeling about it. It just made me feel gross. And maybe it's fear. Maybe I'm just afraid of that one. I don't know.
But this time, I mean, you're a different person. But.
Yeah, I don't know. I did not like the way that one made me feel. And just the way she moves and the way, like when she crawls out of things, and just the idea of literally nothing being safe. No reflection anywhere. You know, it's not like, it probably comes back down to a control thing, if I'm being honest. Because it's like within the, you know, some of the victims weren't even do the chant themselves. Right.
It was they were attacked. What do you say that? Bystanderly? I don't know how you say it. Like an innocent bystander. They weren't the ones that were like saying in the mirror. They were in the same room with the person.
Right.
So I wonder.
By association. Basically, they were guilty by association.
Because I wonder if you need to watch the episode, but spoilers. If the older sister that was like, you're dumb, that's not how everybody died, blah, blah, blah. And she said it in the mirror, she wouldn't be attacked because she didn't have anything going on that she had done in the past that would make her feel, unless she did and we weren't told.
She didn't have a secret.
But Charlie was right there.
Right.
And so Charlie, because she had a weird secret about her ex-boyfriend or whatever, then she had Mary following her around in those mirrors and the reflections. And in the teacher's glasses, I was like, no escape. That was horrible. Yeah.
For people who are listening, basically the premise is, I'm sure a lot of people have heard the urban legend of Bloody Mary. Because I can remember, you know, being 10 and like it was like a sleepover game, you know, something weird.
Yeah.
It was never something I did because it was always something that I felt like was gross.
And scary.
From a child's standpoint, I've never liked it. And then I think maybe seeing that was an actual episode. So it was like a childhood thing. And then I saw the title and what it was about, and it started coming back to me, I think. And I'm like, I didn't like this as a child. It was a fear I had as a child.
Like when you guys played, we talked a little bit about it while we were watching the episode, sleepovers, you were like, did you ever do that?
Right.
And I think I was like, I'll go in there and do it, I don't care. But I was really scared. I only did it like twice. Right. And then I'm like, nothing happened. Or I don't know if the other girls did it. Like we would go in as a group and I'm like, don't say it, you know?
Right.
Did you experience sleepovers like that when you were playing like the levitation stuff? And
I never did that. No.
Did you play anything like that?
I think I've had friends who have done the go into the bathroom and do the chant, but I was always like, I'll be out here. I'm not doing it. Like I just have never been.
I don't want to make this into a stereotype, but you do have close Black family. I'm just saying it's a thing when you guys are like, no, we're going to go the opposite direction. I'm not running into fear. I feel like you have that. It's good because you're not like crazy white girl that's like, yeah, let's do that. Like, no.
Let's do it. I'm like, no.
I'm going home.
Because I think I had some awareness of, like, why would you invite something like that into your life?
I never even thought like that, Brooke.
You know what I mean? Like you
were already thinking like that. That's
already
crazy.
Like,
that's great.
I don't want that. Like, I thought that way. Like, well, I'm not going to give her permission to come into my house. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess I didn't take it seriously like that.
I did. I 100% did. So then seeing this episode as I was probably 15
Right.
when I watched this, and I was like, ugh,
Yeah.
And I was kind of going through a phase where I was watching a lot of horror. I went through a phase where I liked scary movies a lot. And I just remember being really uncomfortable the entire episode. And then when my little brother wanted to watch, like when I did a watch through with him after I'd already watched everything, I made him skip that one because it just something about it.
Which was crazy why it came up this time. And it's like, this is an essential episode. And I'm like, what? You're like, I don't want it to be. And I'm like, maybe we're different.
Right.
Maybe there's something we should look into it. And,
Right.
let's warn people about summoning. Let's not do that.
Right. Like you're inviting things in, essentially. Like
you're playing around with stuff that you should.
What your heart being in agreement with something, what that will do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because the premise of the episode, that's where it kind of differed from the legend that I had always heard. I didn't really ever hear anything about like you had to have a secret involving where someone had died for it to be a thing. You know what I mean? That was different and new. So like when I'm watching it now from, after post shift and knowing spiritually what all that is, it makes sense, why it is the way it is. But yeah, I just never liked it. Yeah. And it's still, even watching it last night, I'm like, I would rather not be watching this.
Yeah. Well, let's tell them about how when we were trying to play the DVD, the DVD wouldn't work of the one we were trying to do.
So we had watched episode 2.
Yeah.
Right. And we're like, okay, it was sort of.
This is a monster
the
monster
week.
Hunting.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of things.
We watched the third
and then
episode.
We watched the third one, and it was sort of similar. There was some generational curse aspect to the third one that I thought was really interesting. And then we're like, well, let's look up a list of ones that people who have watched this, critics, think are pivotal to this series. Sam looked up a list, and right before she looked up this list and was like, well, Bloody Marys, I knew I didn't want to. And she's like, well, Lord, just we're praying for an extra round of protection, like nothing weird. Immediately after she did that, the whole DVDs just stopped working.
Mm-hmm.
It would not go beyond the like WB screen, like even to give us a main menu to select anything.
Right.
We're like, okay, well, is this the protection? Like, hey, don't watch this one and move on to the next one.
Or is this the warfare?
Or is this resistance because we want to evaluate something that's in here and talk about it. So, and then we were just having a heck of a time with the DVD. So I just was like, I will buy 1 month of Netflix. Turned on Netflix, purchased it. Kid you not, Supernatural itself would not load on there.
We were looking at other series to try. They were playing effortlessly.
Yeah. And
then Supernatural would crash every time.
Yeah. It did not feel like you shouldn't be watching this. It felt
resistant.
Like, what the heck? You know? So
we watched
it.
You did like an update or something.
I went ahead and was like, oh, fine. I will watch this one. Even if it's just to like let go of something weird that I was holding on
not
to
giving it power.
Right.
Yeah. That's smart.
Because watching it back now, I'm like, well, even if that did come in here, I'd be like, what? Get out. In the name of Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, but I do think the whole aspect of circumstances surrounding her death. So Mary, her death but being violent, and there was secrets wrapped up in it, and it was murder, how that sort of like with the pilot that we watched with the woman in white, where she was deciding the person's guilt. And I thought specifically that ending scene where Sam goes to the mirror and says the chant, and it comes to the mirror and starts telling him the things of why he is guilty. And I'm like, the voice of the accuser. And like the more he believed it, the more pain he was in, the more control the spirit had over him. Like basically he was accepting that he deserved what was happening to him.
Right.
And that I was like, voice of the accuser. Because That's what happened with everyone. That they had a secret. Even so, the girl who, Charlie, she didn't kill anybody, but someone she knew, her boyfriend, committed suicide, and she viewed it as her fault.
Because he said, if you leave, they had a fight. If you leave right now, I'll kill myself.
Right.
And she's like, do it. And then she leaves, and then he does.
Right.
And then she feels this guilt and shame.
Yeah.
On it.
She's in agreement with it. So it's just interesting to think of what you're giving permission to come into your life when you are knowingly or unknowingly in agreement with something.
When their eyes are bleeding,
Mm-hmm.
there was literally, in our book that we look at for interpretation stuff, it literally had tears of blood in there as earnest search for repentance. So it's like as soon as they have that happen to them, because their eyes are about to liquefy, is what they were saying, like turn to mush in their brain, she like does something
like penance.
But it's like, this is the blood, and blood is always atonement. Right. So it's like you better ask for forgiveness because it's about to go down. But I just thought, again, the symbolism is always crazy for what you're watching. And if this is just the beginning with things, it'll just get deeper and weirder as we go on, and I'm excited to look at that. But I thought that was cool. And it's always atonement, and this blood was life, atonement, judgment, guilt, blame, murder. And I was like, whoa, I mean, that was all in that. And I'm like, well, yeah, blood, but I'm like, but it's coming from the eyes, which was like, that's for repentant.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Because the accuser was saying, you are guilty.
Yeah. But what's crazy is when you point a finger at someone, there's 3 pointing back at you. And she had a bunch of stuff going on with herself. And as soon as he put that mirror up at her at the end and she looked into it, and he was like...
It was like listing off the things.
At her own self. Yeah. Mary was telling Mary what's up.
Yeah.
Which was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you did this, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So she had her own stuff going on. I'm like, the accuser. Devil's been deviling around for a very long time. Yeah. Gross.
Because the original story was that she was having an affair with a married man, right?
I didn't even get to look it up, but what they were saying, yes.
Yeah, I think that's... Oh, yeah. In the show, Mary. Her original story was that she was having an affair with a married... And he was a doctor. Because that was the whole thing. He was a surgeon. He had, like, surgically removed her eyes, and that was part of the reason why she was...
Getting rid of everyone's eyes. Calling that.
Yeah.
Weird.
But yeah, she was like 19 or something. I remember them saying she was young.
Right. Mirrors represented past. And you were talking about portals. You're like, oh, mirrors are always portals. I'm like, she's coming out of it, first of all.
Right.
Portaling herself. But moving from one reflection to another.
That's how she was getting around.
But mirrors themselves, you're looking at your past. And so all these people had all this shame.
And they even, I think, Sam or Dean, one of them even says that looking up the lore surrounding mirrors, that they are a window, a reflection of your soul, essentially.
Yes.
And that's why it's bad luck to break them.
There's like 600 years bad luck here, Sam.
Right. Like that's...
we gotta get out of here.
That's why it was bad luck. And like it's...
Yeah.
I mean, it all ties in.
Yeah. And you know, when you like vanity, like mirrors, like vanity, I looked up because the antique store that was on the street, and they put it out there, Mackenzie or whatever is the street name. So I looked up, it means good looking. I think that's so funny. I'm like, what? It was in Toledo, which was crazy because that's like a few hours north of us or whatever. We're southeast. North of us. More Midwest. Towards Indiana, correct? Because that's 3rd and Fort Wayne and all that. Yeah. Like headed that direction.
That's where, in the story, that's where she was murdered.
Right.
Was Indiana.
So she's kind of staying in a weird radius going around.
And how she ended up in this town was that in the show, a lot of times when they're trying to get rid of these spirits, they have to salt and burn their bones, right? That's the whole thing. But when they asked about where she was buried, they found out she was cremated already. Mm-hmm. But she died in front of that mirror. And they're like, it's trapped her spirit in this mirror. And also remember, she like put her blood on the front. She was trying to write out her killer's name. Mm-hmm. So it was like a part of her, you know what I mean? Like her DNA or whatever. That's what they were saying. Well, then after they couldn't solve her murder, they gave her personal belongings back to her family, and they gave her brother that mirror.
And then
he sold the mirror to that antique shop in Toledo, and she was, her spirit was attached to it.
Yeah.
Essentially was what they were saying. And I don't know the logistics of her radius, but she could use anything reflective basically to portal. And then when people are inviting her in, it's like she now has like a soul tie to that person basically, so they're taking her wherever they are. I feel like that's how she's getting around, because she's now attached to them.
Yeah, because we could talk about attachments all day. Correct.
How many things have we heard about when people are like, when you're buying secondhand things or whatever, like cleansing stuff before you bring it into your house, because you don't know.
Right. My mom has had to do that with specific things when she feels weird about stuff that are just even brought to the shop, and she's going through it and she's like, ugh, you know. Yeah. Then she like burns that, or you know, puts in the dumpster or whatever. Right. Throws it away, burns it.
I do think that it kind of centers around a control thing for me too. They didn't participate themselves, but they were still being punished. Someone else or something else having that much control or say over whether you live or die, and you can't. That's why I hate disaster movies like that. I'm like, you can't fight an earthquake that opens up the San Andreas Fault. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, like, it's not like aliens invading where you can at least try and rally, you know, like
it's like nature. This big thing is happening and you're like, you can't escape it.
Right.
Unless the Lord's like, force field.
Right.
I didn't feel one earthquake. The California's in the ocean. Because you're like, I have no control over why I'm dying.
Right. So it's different now, but my original aversion to it. Yeah.
The address for the antique store at the end is 501 Mackenzie Street. Anyway, 501, 5 is redemption, and 100 is complete. So you have redemption, completeness, and then 1. For some reason, they put 1 in there, and it was a representation of God because he does it. That's in my mind when I'm like 501, baby. Like, it just seemed cool because it was all taken care of.
Right.
At the end.
At the end.
But it was redeemed, complete by God.
You know, I always wondered too about that episode, because the little girl at the beginning who had all of her friends over, and that was the whole reason it started, she now is carrying that guilt of it being her fault. So I'm surprised that they didn't loop back around and try to include her in that. I'm surprised she didn't get murdered. But maybe it's because it's not a secret.
It had to be a secret.
They knew. I mean, she yelled it. It's my fault because I let my fault.
So having sins come to light, and so the accuser doesn't come and have power over you to...
Don't bury anything so that no one can come behind you and dig it up. Like a weapon against you. Basically, by hiding something, you're in agreement with shame.
But scripturally, it tells you to bring your stuff to the light, so that he doesn't use it against you.
Right.
So if people were just like talking about it with anybody instead of like deep dark secret,
confessing your sins to one another helps you to receive the grace of God. Actually receiving and believing that there's grace on something that you've been forgiven for, it, you know, nullifies the guilt.
There's freedom.
And yes. You know, she's no longer.
So if anybody is struggling with any secrets, telling a friend, talking about it with the Lord, yes to both of those things. Yeah. Get it off your chest so it's not holding on to you. There are things that I have told you guys that I'm like, oh, and now it's not this.
Right.
Even things that aren't necessarily sin, they're just like shame things.
Right.
When they come to light, and I'm like, oh, it's not a hold on me. I can just talk about it freely.
Right.
Slowly, but then I'm like, oh, you know, it was easier to talk about, and that way it's not a chain on you in any way.
Yeah.
That's one of the most beautiful things. Yeah. I forget.
Because you are not a victim once you can grab a hold of that, because then you have authority over it. It just locks you in a little bit more with your identity. Not easy. You know what I mean? It's hard.
But glorious. I say it every time.
And typically not a overnight, okay, I said it once and now I believe it. No,
you have to practice
it. It's a daily thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, practice it. If the more you say it, the easier it is. The morgue, on the number, they put morgue 144. Like, that was the room.
Mm-hmm.
And 144. So, the debt of unforgiveness, not known, and then the spirit realm, because it's the fourth dimension. And there was double 4. So, the spirit realm, fourth dimension, not known, is the shame, guilt stuff that people had secrets.
Right.
That were holding them back. And then the debt of unforgiveness. So she's like, now it's time to be attuned. Yes. Yeah. So morgue 144. I'm just like, did they choose that, or is that something that came up? Because I sometimes like, am I reaching? But when I'm like, what's there on the pages, I'm like, this is cool.
Right.
Where did it come from? If not, these guys writing this out with the Lord, or, whatever.
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, because I think about it from a perspective of a writer. So when I write things, I like to do the research into, like, even selecting names for people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I think that's important because it says it's the first prophecy basically that's spoken over you.
Yes.
Your name. So I think it's important, to consider those things when we're naming our children.
Doesn't John Christ have a joke about that, where it's like, people are naming their kids after the Bible, but not looking at which names they're using. Do not name your kid Goliath.
After reading Judges, you're like, Benjamin. Why are we naming our kids Benjamin?
Oh my gosh.
The numbers that they're using, for me, that would be something that I would do intentionally as a writer. That being said, they might not be doing it intentionally at all, but it's just the pattern and design of things, and they unknowingly are just like, that feels right, and you know what I mean, like, because it's all connected. Like, that's a little, everything you just read off is a little bit too coincidental to be a coincidence, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like,
and they could be like morgue room number 2. Right. They wouldn't have to put 144.
Right.
Like, what is that? Because even using the name Mary, his beloved one, and like for all that stuff that she's been through, all the stuff that she's putting towards people, she's still loved. Right. She was still loved by God. And then Lily, one of the definitions was grows in the secret hidden place. And Lily is the first girl who says it, the little girl in the bathroom in the beginning. So this whole thing starts with a hidden, like, she's it's innocent. She's innocent. But then it comes into like, she's been planted, and then it turns out Dad had a secret. Right. Donna's, her older sister, Donna, her friend had a secret. These people have all these weird secrets. Right. And it all started with, anyway, she was in a hidden dark place, planted. I thought that was cool. Mm-hmm. Carrie Bryman was one of the names written in blood on the back of the
It was a little boy.
Carrie means darkness. Bryman's just the last name. I didn't really get it.
He died in a hit and run.
Oh, that's right. The girl. Yeah.
Yep.
She was crazy. Mm-hmm. And then Linda is the mom who died from like her husband giving her a sleeping pill or something, and he felt weird about it, like gave her too much or something.
Yeah, something like that.
And Linda means beautiful serpent. I'm just saying, Mary's kind of a beautiful serpent. You grossness.
Oh boy.
March 29th was used. March is return to war, because you're marching. 29 is responsibility, finality, and judgment, end or conclusion.
Judgment.
I know.
Oh. Well, it's funny too, because you were reading Judges, right? And then you read that whole chapter out loud to me, whatever. So we're going through that, and the theme at the end of it, he's like, "You didn't want a king, you didn't want a judge, and this is what it looks like when you're trying to govern yourself." Yeah. And that was her whole thing. This happened to me. His secret, she was mad in death that his secret didn't get exposed. The injustice of it. Yeah. That he killed her, but also that he wouldn't claim her. Right. Which I think is the big part of it too. Like, he wouldn't claim that he loved her at all, and he kept her a secret, made her dirty. Like, not only was her murder a secret, but the love that he had for her.
Yeah, everything about their relationship
was shame.
Yeah.
And
Poor
so,
Mary.
Right. And so she was just like rage, you know, like
Yeah.
I will get justice for myself. When the Lord says justice is mine. You know what I mean? So
when Dean is in there, but he doesn't, when he says he chants the thing 3 times, is Dean still in the room?
No.
With Sam? He's like, oh no, lights, before he even says it?
He goes outside, I'm pretty sure. Well,
he says, be careful.
Be careful.
And then but he had already said it.
Right. But you notice, though, when he came back in and they broke that mirror, his eyes, which that boy is racked with guilt. He thinks everything's his fault.
Right.
From season 1 to season 15, he absorbs all the guilt.
Yeah. Because at first he's just helping Sam pick him up, and then she comes out, and then it happens.
And it was, which, even though he was like 4 and stuff that happened with his mom, you know, I think he
isn't that whole thing a secret? Like, are the boys able to be like, my mom died on the ceiling and blah blah blah?
Probably not. It was just like a weird,
right. And he's also now in his 20s. He's probably got some weird stuff going that has happened.
And I bet there's a very good likelihood that he feels some guilt over what happened to Sam's girlfriend, because he drugged Sam back into it. He did say that, and it was the whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that was another thing. The dreams that Sam was having about her days before she actually died.
I wrote that down because I was like, I don't think I remember that from the first time watching this show.
Yeah. Well, dreams are more significant to us now, I think.
Right. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But he was dreaming about how she was dying before it happened.
Yeah.
Because when it happened, he's like, no, like.
Well, and that's where his guilt was coming from, because he's I didn't warn her. I didn't. And that's what we were talking about. The more you know, the more responsibility you have. You can't just wipe your hands of things and be like, someone else can deal with that. If you know.
Yeah.
Because he knows enough to know that what he's dreaming isn't just, oh, this is nothing, I'm just having a nightmare. He's seen enough. He's done enough. He knows the significance of that.
Right.
Even if he's like thinking, oh, maybe this is just because I actually saw this happen to my mom when I was 6 months old. But
you think it's a maturity thing? So he's finally grown up. He's growing up.
Right. Because he's 22 at this point.
Right. Barely.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, you're still doing a lot of growing up when you're, especially a dude, you know, they want to hang out and party, and he's running away from all his past and stuff.
Right.
So he just wants to be successful, have a good time, be with his girlfriend.
Right.
But I'm saying, so even if he knew all this, he's still kind of running away from it. So should he have said something? Probably, but he wasn't even thinking about it, because he's like, this isn't what I want. It's not what I'm doing. It's not happening to me.
Right.
And then when he comes back, and then it happens to her, and he's like, oh, I just wonder if it's a maturity thing. I should have, but he's now learned.
Right.
In the most painful way possible, but now he's like, it won't happen again.
Right. I think for him specifically, because of this whole thing with Jess, because you're saying like he knows I should have done something, into the maturity thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even where I'm at right now, I kind of agree. You're correct. You should have, if you have something in your life that you know could endanger all the people around you, especially if they don't even know to look out for it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's kind of on you a little bit.
Yeah.
Because like we talked about, when he's like, I just want to be normal, like burying your head in the sand just doesn't mean that it's not still going on around you. So let's look at it from perspective of, from him being a child, basically day one, they've been hunting and killing all these things, and you will see the network of enemies that they have because of that. At any moment, any of those things that he has encountered in his past with his dad and his brother could come back and be like, he killed our family, we're going to kill his. You know what I mean? And like, and she would have no idea. And what if she had kids with him?
Right.
Like, I just feel like you have to know what you're If you're going to marry someone and entering into a covenant and agreement with them, and you don't know that they have all these attachments that you've now adopted as your own, that's not fair.
Ugh, yeah.
So I mean, I think that's why the foundation of marriages needs to be Christ, because of that. You know what I mean? Like,
delivered from all of that,
and then walking together towards Him. Because I mean, you're working on it, not just your own salvation with fear and trembling, but now I've got my husband, and a husband's like my wife. Right. Now we have to do hers and mine, and because I think there's gonna be things too that I'm sure that you don't find out about yourself until you're married, or until you're in a committed relationship, that you don't even know that something that you needed to look at because you've never had to before.
Yeah.
So that whole notion of having to be completely healed
just up to a certain point,
right? Yeah,
so that you're effective for the kingdom, not like, well, we got a spiritual broken arm over here.
On Him to drag me the whole way. Like
that's what I secretly want.
Right. Well, that's why I
don't want to do any work.
It was like I think it was a podcast that I was listening to. I don't remember who it was, but he was looking at scripture and like the original like Greek and Hebrew meaning of certain words, where like marriage, like to be with somebody like that, was looked at like literally translated into like someone you would go to war with.
Yeah, I remember saying that.
You didn't trust them to stand next to you in war, because if they're just like a dud, a spiritual, do you know what I'm saying?
Are you a coward?
Right.
Like, no, thank you. But you don't know that until you're actually in a battle with them.
Right. Like, then they're a liability.
Yeah. I don't want to be that for them either. So to get that taken care of first.
Because think about having to watch your own 6 and someone else's back the whole time.
Right. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, all that to say, Bloody Mary.
Ugh.
Bloody Mary. I'm just kidding.
Don't even do it. Oh my gosh. Stupid.
I would never do that to you.
We'll throw this pen at you.
Doing like a tackle me before I say it.
Yeah, we'll keep going with it. I think we're going to be a little bit more selective about, because first of all, the show's just starting, so there's a lot of filler world building stuff happening. So we're probably not going to do every episode, but ones that I can remember that I'm like, oh yeah, there's some good stuff in that one. We'll try to at least, even if it's just like, hey, we watched episodes 6, 12, and 22 today. These were the things that we took from it.
Yes. We'll play it with them.
Because I know, it does really start getting heavily involved with demons, angels, God, the devil. Like literally, there's a story line coming up in season 2 or 3 where they're breaking the seals from Revelation. You know what I mean? So like we'll try to go in depth, actually give scriptural references and everything.
Yeah, I want to do that. I know logistical standpoint, we're going to play around with a couple angles with 2 cameras. Yeah. We want to use this for sound, because a lot of the time you guys aren't hearing everything that's going on, and I have to cut and edit, and 2 people are Marcus and I were being so loud in one area, and you and Roger, I'm trying to film, and I didn't even think about it. It's just this is nice to actually sit and practice using the mics. We'll have this for the podcast, but
and eventually this series might end up being mostly podcast type content.
Podcast stuff I'm looking at like actual winter when I'm posting that stuff. So I'm saying like December, January. So we are collecting all of our stuff. We've got people coming and Enneagram to talk about. But anyway, we wanted to use this, so I hope you're enjoying that. Anyway, subscribe, like it. Shout out to the people who are really paying attention. I'm just really excited.
We appreciate you.
Yeah. My mom was talking about how the last one was like her favorite one, which was, I'm like, that was awesome, because Brooke said the same thing. She enjoyed it, I guess I just feel self-conscious sometimes.
Because it was books. That's
You're like, let's talk about books all day. Which we could.
All day, son. All day.
Anyway.
Yeah.
That's us.
We appreciate you all. Stay tuned.
Comment anything you want to.
Yes.
We want to answer questions.
I think the next episode, if you guys kind of want to get ahead of the game, that we're for sure, that we know we're watching, is called Faith. And I want to say it's episode 12-ish.
I think you're right.
I think it's around in there.
It is season 1 still, so just look for it on Netflix or wherever. Unless you're a millennial and you have the DVDs. But But check on those DVDs because they might be slipping now because the scratches everywhere.
Mine are struggling.
The teeth on the DVD case is like all of them are broken off, so they're just like sliding around in there, and I'm like, oh no. But anyway.
But yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you guys. We appreciate you.